Okay. Yeah, done.
I'm letting in the people.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this, the 22nd in the series of Coffee with the Bar. We started off at the outset, we apologize for the slight delay. Coffee with the Bar, we started off doing a few legal topics in the form of lectures and speeches here and there. To be very frank, we got bored of it after a few, and therefore we started one-on-one sessions. And these one-on-one sessions went rather well, I must say, after which we started doing some non-legal topics, which was with historians. We also did a music show, which was streamed live from the US in August 2020. And then we thought we would do something that is a serious topic, in the sense, not a serious topic per se, but a topic that is about a serious issue. And that's how this session has come into play. The origin of the idea for this session actually might surprise a lot of people. Came about around 2 years ago. As some of you know, I'm a lawyer and we appear for a lot of temples. So 2 years ago, we were appearing in one public interest litigation on behalf of a temple. We were defending the case of the temple, and the petitioner was this organization called Arappor Iyakkam. We had, of course, heard of this name before, but then suddenly to be confronted with this Arappor Iyakkam as the petitioner, we sort of, we're still defending that case. But then we met this moving force behind Arappor Iyakkam in court. Then a couple of months later, we filed a writ petition in respect of hoardings with reference to the corporation. And we heard the name Arappor Iyakkam in a different context at that point of time. So though we are actually appearing against each other, we were rather impressed with their work, I must say. We will fight this temple case to its natural end, but we were rather impressed with their work. So we thought we would definitely call upon them. And therefore, we decided to have this session, and we decided to call one of the many passionate persons behind Arappor Iyakkam to be our guest, and that is how we've got Jayaram Venkatesan on board here. Hi and welcome to Coffee with the Bar, Jayaram. Thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of our platform, our session, our interaction, whatever you would like to call it. And just a general piece of information for everybody, Jayaram might have been very, very controversial in real life. So I must put out a disclaimer that we are only offering him the platform. The views are all his and we have nothing to do with his views. Welcome, Jayaram, and good to have you on board. So is this the first time that you're doing a session for somebody else? Normally you do have a YouTube channel on which you upload your own thoughts, your policies, the principles that you and your group of dedicated volunteers stand for. Is this the first time you're appearing on a third-party show?
No, this is not the first time, but first of all, thanks a lot for having me here. So it's a pleasure, definitely, to be here. And given that Coffee with Bar series has had a lot of judicial, people on board over the last few weeks, and now that you are diversifying and you decided to have Arappor in this, it's a great pleasure for us, definitely.
Okay. Right. When Wilson and me, Wilson is the guy who is actually the brain behind this Coffee with the Bar series. When Wilson and me decided that we would, have a session with you, we thought we would start off with your background because we wanted probably the entire world to realize that Jayaram Venkatesan is as ordinary as you and me, and he's not a guy with 3 horns and 2 mustaches. So, Jayaram, where did you do your schooling?
So I did my schooling in St. John's, Villayakkam. So I was born and brought up pretty much in Villayakkam, Baba Nagar. So that's the area as it's called. So the St. John's group of schools that's there in many places, Mandavalli, Pesanagar, and so on. So it's the same group of schools.
I just hope, Jayaram, that you know that Villayakkam is, closer to Bangalore as far as Mylapore Vasis are concerned.
Okay.
For us, even Annanagar is outskirts.
That's true. I mean, Villayakkam, at least at that point of time, I mean, right now things have changed a lot. Villayakkam has become the center of Chennai, right? I mean, almost at the central part of Chennai right now. But at that point of time, it was almost on the outer when I grew up and all that, outer part of Chennai. And yeah, so that's where I did my schooling till 12th. And then I did my college in Velamal Engineering College. That's where I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering. And then I went to the US to do masters in electrical engineering. So did that at the University of Cincinnati in Ohio.
Okay.
And then I worked for a few years and came back. So that's
okay.
all the whole thing.
So Velamal Engineering College, after you've become a prominent name in society in terms of citizens' issues, after you've become a prominent name, has your Velamal Engineering recognized you as one of the stalwarts of their alumni, so to say?
No, I mean, first of all, I don't expect that, but
that's
secondly, the alumni, I'm not sure whether it's very active in the college.
Okay.
I have not heard from them much, but quite a few years back when our HOD was there, still there, she used to contact us, she used to recognize us and talk quite a few times. Yeah.
Okay. And master's was in the University of Cincinnati, Ohio, which was the Midwest. So extremely cold place.
Yeah, it's very cold, and we enjoyed it a lot. In fact, when we went there, we were almost 10 to 15 people from Tamil Nadu were there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 10 to 15 of us from Tamil Nadu were there. So we got together really well. So it was a lot of fun in the university. I mean, even though it was quite cold and all that, but we enjoyed it a lot. So it was a wonderful experience. I mean, in my whole life, that college experience in the US was a fantastic experience.
Okay, right. So after doing your master's in University of Cincinnati, you then worked. You worked in California?
Yeah, I went to work in countrywide security. So my specialization was more into it's a bridge between electrical engineering and mathematics. So more into statistical analysis, neural networks, pattern recognition. So it's kind of a bridge between electrical engineering and mathematics. So my work, so the area of application was a lot in financial research, in terms of building models, prepayment models, default models, and so on. So I went to work with a firm called Countrywide Securities. So I worked in the research division for a couple of years. And in 2007, I decided to come back to India. So it was a very good work experience as well. So yeah.
Okay. So 2007, you decided to come back to India for good. And was there any specific reason to come back except?
Yes, I mean, see, when I was in US, in fact, when I was doing my master's, one of the issue was that, I mean, of course, we are all worried about our career. We were all worried about where we will. So, and we had a quarter system, it's not even a semester system. A quarter system is where every 3 months you have exams. So you just only have 2 months to actually prepare for all the courses and so on. So it was quite tight in that sense. But what happened was one day my roommate, so he called me for a session on Bhopal gas tragedy. So I went to that session. Basically, I was not inclined to go to that session, but he kind of forced me. He said, you come, I will even buy you dinner. So that's how he forced me. So that deal was very good. So I decided to go with him for this session. But when I went there, kind of, changed the whole perspective that I had. That session not. Because what happened was that there were two people, I still remember their name, Rashida B and Champa Devi. So they were affected by the Bhopal gas tragedy. They came to the university to give a talk on the effects, the after effects of the tragedy, and how even the underground water is affected, how even breast milk is affected even after 20 years. So that was in the session was in 2003, almost 20. After that, I was not even aware of the whole tragedy that happened in detail, many people, and so it kind of gave me a lot of guilt feeling at the end of that session, I should say. So that kind of started this whole interest in, I should do something, apart from the whole job, career, and all that. So that's how we used to meet in the university almost once in 2 weeks. A group of friends used to raise funds. We used to, do cultural sessions, raise funds. We also invite people from India to give a talk about understanding about a lot of social issues and so on. So we started doing things like that. And that is how I developed a lot of interest in issues in India, social issues in India. So at a point of time, I decided that I should, it is much more meaningful to come back and do this work rather than do that work. So it was around 2000, probably around 2005 or 6, I made the decision that I should come back. But yeah, I decided to work there for a couple of years and then came back here in 2007.
Okay.
So that's how the journey happened.
When you came back here, one of the priorities that you had in mind, according to what I have seen, was quality education for all. That was probably the first on your list, is it? Priority list? Quality education for all?
Yeah, see, in fact, I didn't want to set my focus on anything in particular in the first few years, but there were already enough people here who were working on quality education. So I wanted to explore a lot in the first few years. So given that set of people have been working on quality education in the villages, so I decided to join them, a group called Aid India. I joined them and worked with them on quality education. So that gave me an exposure to travel to a lot of villages. So in fact, in 2007, I came here, 2008, sort of villages, look at what issues are there in education, work with a lot of children in rural Tamil Nadu, and train teachers with respect to, come up with a lot of new methodologies in terms of how to get a child to read a basic, story in Tamil, how to get them to do addition, subtraction, basic mathematics, and so on. So we came up with a lot of new methodologies in which this can be done in a very interesting way, very easy way. So that was the initial start. Yes, that was what I did from almost 2008 to 2010. And parallelly, my interest was, always in agriculture as well. So because, see, if you remember, that was the time when this whole issue of farmer suicides and everything started coming to we all started to get to know about it. Almost 2 lakh suicides were there in the previous 10 to 15 years at that point of time. So agriculture was again an issue that I was very interested in. So I started doing farming myself. I wanted to do farming and check for myself if I can do something within agriculture. So 2009 to 11, 9 to 12, I did agriculture myself. So every week, what we used to do is I used to be here in Chennai, but at least 3 days a week, I used to travel and spend time in the villages, understanding issues of education, understanding issues of agriculture, doing agriculture myself. That's how I spent my initial years between 2008 to 2012. And so once we started seeing that there are different ways in which we can improve the yield of small and marginal farmers, like modified system of there are different sheep, kadalur, and so on. So that's how this whole thing started after coming back to India.
Okay. Now, this after this education, after this interest in agriculture, etc., you slowly moved into exposing corruption and all that. Where approximately when did this happen? Which year approximately?
It was after 2014. So until 2014, we were doing this agriculture, spending a lot of time with the farmers organization, building it, and it's still going on. One of my colleagues called Ajay, he has been doing that till date, and I spend very little time in terms of offering feedbacks and all that. But around 2014, the issue was that when I was spending a lot of time with education issues and agriculture issues, one of the things that I found was that, whatever solution or innovation that we find in the field, when we take that to ultimately it is the government machinery that has to do this on a large scale. And so whenever we took this to the government machinery, talked to people in the government, we found that nothing was moving much. And, what we found was that a lot of their effort was into, if I go and meet the CEO of the district, so there is a chief educational officer in each district. So whenever we went and met them about these different methodologies, how to take this to the schools, how to take this to the teachers, their interest was much, much different. I mean, there are few officers who are interested, but many of them, what we found was were more interested in, how much money that they could make out of a transfer of teachers. Their focus was completely different is what we found. Similarly, with respect to agriculture, right till the farmer, we found that there were a lot of schemes that were there. But unfortunately, none of these schemes actually translated to the small and marginal farmer because there would be a lot of collusion between these agricultural department and large farmers who had political clout. So many of these schemes would be swindled at that point of at that level itself, and none of these schemes would translate to the farmers. And we had to, the kind of fight started there. In the village, we started with questioning the government, questioning the agriculture department. Why are these schemes not, when these schemes are there for small and marginal farmers, why is it not being given to them? Why is it given to the large farmers? So we started with that. There was a lot of dialogue, pressurizing that happened. And finally, the entire village, in fact, a lot of farmers in the village started getting these schemes. And that gave me a lot of confidence that when you question them, when you start asking these questions along with people, things do happen. But without this questioning, things are not moving. If you go and try to work with them, just plead them, things are not working out. So that's when, this whole dimension changed with respect to, there is this large government machinery. Unless we question this large machinery and get them to do things for the people, things are not going to happen. And as citizens, if we fear questioning, nothing is going to change in this whole world. So therefore, it was around that point of time in 2014, I was looking at platforms where we can raise these kind of questions. And that's when, if you remember, the Aam Aadmi Party was also formed. So I, in fact, thought that would be a platform for questioning a lot of these social issues, because Aam Aadmi Party also at that point of time spoke about corruption, spoke about the issues of corruption, how we can expose it, and they started exposing quite a few corruption at that point of time. So at that point of time, I joined the party in 2014, but I was there probably for less than a year. Uh, but what it also gave us is that those 10 to 12 months also gave us a lot of confidence with respect to questioning, I would say. I know the positives, of course, the negatives are all there, which the whole world knows about political parties and so on. So the positive was that, it also gave a lot of confidence with respect to questioning corruption. And we felt within a year that within a political party, it is extremely tough to, do constructive work in terms of fighting corruption, in terms of questioning the government and all that. So I decided to come out, and not only me, then I also met around 15 to 20 similar-minded people in Aam Aadmi Party. So when I had come out, almost many others had also come out at that point of time. So we all thought that we shouldn't go this to waste. We should build a movement to actually continue questioning about corruption, continue questioning about this a whole set of issues. And unless we build a vibrant civil society where people question with data, things are not going to change, is what we felt. And so that kind of building a vibrant civil society is what brought 15 or 20 of us together. We had a series of sessions together, and Arappor was formed on August 22nd, 2015 by these 15 to 20 people. It was not formed by me or someone else, but it was formed by this group of 15 to 20 people. To be exact, around I think 18 people. 18 of us got together and started this.
Okay. There are many things, many incidents that are never to be forgotten in your life. The day your child was born, the day you fell in love, the day you got married, etc. Similarly, the day you get arrested for the first time in your life is a day that you will never forget. So when was this first time that you were arrested? The reason that I'm asking is, you were part of an ordinary middle class household. So this arrest, I'm sure, must have come as a shock to your family, your immediate circle. So when did this happen, and what was the reaction?
Yeah, so my first arrest was in 2015. It was in March. So at that point of time, there was this engineer who committed suicide because he was pressurized into doing corruption in the agriculture department. So we kind of, we were trying to press for action. And in fact, we gathered before the Chief Minister's house for giving a petition to the Chief Minister, of course. And the police arrested us and even remanded us. So that was the first time we got arrested, but almost 50 of us got remanded. So it was 50 of us together. That was when I was in the Aam Aadmi Party. And then the second time I was arrested was in later that year, after we formed the Arappor Iyakkam in December, when we were talking about this hoardings issue. There was this series of hoardings that were put up in December 2015, right after the floods. I think this is a scenario that no one would have forgotten in Chennai, all the way from Poets Garden to all the way to Thiruvanmiyur. Every feet you saw a huge amount of hoardings, and we all knew that these hoardings were illegal because there were set rules that hoardings can't be put up, these digital banners cannot be put up, at junctions. There has to be a gap of 10 meters between each of them. So all of these violations happened, and they were put up. And so that was the second time, because the previous year we went to the police station trying to plead them, trying to ask them to remove these illegal digital banners, but they were not ready to remove it. none of the government machinery was ready to remove it. We sent the complaint to the collector and everyone. So, in fact, the police kind of told us, we can't remove it. We will definitely not remove it. If you can, you go and remove it. So that's what they said. So we thought, okay, let us go and try removing it. And 3 of us went and removed these banners as a symbolic kind of protest. And that was the second time we got remanded as well. So yes, as you say, coming from a middle class family, this whole apprehensions were there. Once I got arrested for the first time, my mother was very, very upset with this whole set of things. My wife was upset very much. So I didn't know. I mean, I was remanded, so I don't know their reactions. I didn't know their reactions. What were the reactions? But before going to the protest, I told them that there is a chance of remand because we are doing a protest. You're going to give a petition, so they may remand us. So they were kind of ready for it, but once it happened, I think there was a lot of tension because I think my younger daughter was 4 months old at that point of time. So my wife, had to also handle both the family sides. My parents, their parents, they were all questioning, and so relatives were questioning. So personally, I think it was a lot of pressure on her as well. And once I came out, of course, my mother was, I saw that my mother was very shaken by this whole set of things. My father was quite strong, so he was not very upset with this, what has happened, but my mother was very upset. But once I got remanded the second time, I think they got used to it. So I think so after the second time, I think they understood that this is something that may be a regular affair. It depends on the state as well.
Okay, pausing here for a minute. For you, it was okay because you were passionate about this probably from 2008 onwards. What about your Arappor Iyakkam is made up of people of all ages, correct? There are a lot of youngsters in that, including college students. College students, I think, form a strong, substantial part of your base, of your volunteer base.
Right.
Now, with all these people who are probably in their 20s, I'm sure their parents will be extremely apprehensive about such things. Do you, as a senior member of this organization, try to give some kind of solace or some kind of courage to the parents of your other volunteers? I mean, how does it work?
Well, I mean, that's a
It hasn't come to that,
that
is
we
it?
face no, that's an issue that we do face.
Okay.
Because it's a very real issue as well. Because when you are in a movement, these kind of apprehensions are there quite a lot, and it's also real. It's not something to be put aside, right? Because any day you can, of course, face a false case. Any day you need not be on the wrong side, but you can still be put on the wrong side as well. So therefore, this whole kind of issue are there, and the way we have dealt with it, the way we deal with it is we tell the volunteers upfront that if you want to fight the system, you need to be ready for any of these things. So they may come up with, when you fight an issue, they may come up with a false case. So you need to face it, right? But there will be definitely several people who will be worried about their career, worried about an FIR being put on them. So we also tell them that you don't need to come to the foreground. So there are a lot of volunteers in Arappor that work in the background. So when you see about the corruption expose that we do, it may be, I may be in the press meet giving a press statement about this whole corruption issue, talking about this whole sense of corruption. But it's not the work of 1 or 2 people in Arappor. It's a work of many people in Arappor who is actually working in the background. There are chartered accountants who prefer to work in the background, provide us with data. There are several sets of people who we say that if you are not comfortable with the foreground work, which involves certain amount of risk definitely, then you start work in the background. So that is something that we do encourage and tell them. On the other side, we also tell them that, you know, this fear is the main problem that we have in the society. You know, today, all the people who are corrupt, all the people, you know, who spill so much money, who do so much injustices, they do not fear the system. They are there, you know, doing all kinds of work without any fear. And we are normal citizens. We are citizens who, you know, I would say if not 100% perfect, but, you know, most of us will at least, you know, want to have a good system. Will always want to follow the rule of law. You know, so why should we fear? Why should we normal citizens who want a corrupt-free society, who want the system to change, who want citizens to follow the rule of law, who want these officials and politicians to follow the rule of law, why should we fear about this whole thing? And if we continue to fear, it's a big advantage for this political class. It's a big advantage for all these people who are doing this corruption. So unless we citizens come out to directly question the system, it is not going to change. So we need to let go of this fear. And what we say is the way it's a process. So we tell them, you don't come and challenge the big corruption straight away, but you start with your road. You know, there may be a pothole in the road. You start complaining about the pothole in the road. You know, and a lot of people today, what we see is they have come forward to start complaining, you know, about many of these issues. And many of these smaller issues, they will not face the wrath of the government straight away. But once it involves, you know, interest of the local councillor, interest of the local politician, that is where, you know, they come in, they rub the wrong side, I would say. I mean, purposefully, in fact, we want to rub that side of the government, of the politicians. And so when they do that, and that is when, you know, this whole set of issue or, you know, false cases start happening. So what we do is we tell them that when it comes to that, you come to us. You don't do it being the face of that. We will do it as an organization. We will take the, you know, we will expose it. We will talk about it so that it's a group work. It's not some individual work. So they won't target you as an individual. So that's the kind of strategy that we have kind of put together and have been working. So there are a lot of people who have let go of their fear and started questioning. There are a lot of people who are still in the process, making some smaller complaints. There are a lot of people who doesn't want to do that, who want to work in the background and contribute significantly. So we have space for all these kinds of volunteers to do work.
That's a nice thing. Okay. So the main objects of Arappor, when you started off effectively, was in respect of, instead of saying corruption or anti-corruption and water bodies and education and all, can we say it's to uphold the rights of the common citizen? Would we be right in saying that as a common statement?
Yes, definitely. In fact, the vision of Arappor Iyakkam, we have put it as to, you know, to work towards a just and equitable society. You know, which is what is there in the Constitution of India. In fact, we don't need a separate objective, is what we feel. Our dream, our objective, all have been put in the Constitution of India. You know, so the preamble speaks quite a lot about it. So the preamble of the Constitution is what I would say is the objective of Arappor Iyakkam as well. And so that's what we have put. And as part of it, what we feel is corruption is a big menace. So we have started focusing on some of these key areas like anti-corruption, water bodies, and so on. But as you say, upholding the rights of the people. So fundamental rights is a very key component of the Constitution of India. So that is where we want to work a lot.
Okay. One part of your organization's work is with reference to the water bodies and the connected encroachments, etc. Have you been able to sort of, shall we say, achieve considerable progress in that in that area in respect of water bodies?
To some extent, yes. In fact, right after the 2015 floods, we did in 2016 we did something significant where we got a lot of citizens of Chennai together. So in fact, there were more than 1,000 citizens of Chennai who came together. We in fact did a public hearing called Kele Chennai Kele, where we got citizens to talk about why their area was flooded, what were the issues that were facing the water bodies in their area, and how we could correct it. And we came up with a very detailed social audit report of the people. And significantly, for that public hearing, officials of corporation came, officials of other departments came, and they promised something. So they promised that we will work with you to get this all right. So we had a very good principal secretary at that point of time as well. So who actually started taking a lot of interest in this citizens audit report, and he started doing a lot of things like, so they did a joint inspection with the people of different areas. So in Villivakkam, they started repairing the stormwater drains. In Pallavaram, Krompet, they started taking some measures. So in each of these areas, they started doing quite a bit of work. And achievement in the sense, I would say, for example, the Villivakkam Lake, where, this lake, for example, in 2015 floods, the reason why this entire Villivakkam area, Sikko Nagar area got flooded was that there was this lake, Villivakkam Lake, which was 39 acres right now in area. But 20 acres of this were encroached with the metro rail earth, the earth that is used for the construction. So they dug and they had put it in this Villivakkam Lake. And so this kind of blocked the entry of the lake. And, if 20 acres out of 39 acres is, kind of filled with this earth, you can imagine how the lake could be. And so that kind of prevented any water coming into the lake, and this entire area was flooded for 15 days. So we kind of took up this issue, we pushed it with the government. Then in fact, we moved a public interest litigation from High Court, it got transferred to the NGT. And today, almost 70% of the lake has been, is being restored. So almost most of the work is done. So today when you go through this Padi Bridge, you'll be able to see this lake that is being restored, Villivakkam Lake that is being restored. That's an effort of, again, many citizens coming together with this whole social audit, public hearing, pressurizing the government, talking to the government. What we have found is that we always do two things. One is we also engage with the government, because we think that is extremely important. We also engage with the government, talk to the officials and all that. And on the other side, we also pressurize them wherever there is maladministration, wherever there is corruption. We also pressurize them, we also expose them, and so on. So Villivakkam Lake being restored, lot of encroachments in Pallavaram Periyeri. In Pallikaranai, we were able to, in Narayanapuram Lake, there was this badminton court that we were able to remove. So a lot of these encroachments over time, we have been able to remove as well. But of course, there are a lot of challenges as well up to date, because this whole encroachment issue within a water body involves a lot of political support. That is, it enjoys a lot of political support from the ruling class. So therefore, it's also tough. But on the other side, we have seen quite a bit of success that has encouraged citizens to work more and more in this area.
Okay. Now, when you're talking about it enjoys a lot of political support, we immediately come to the other focal point of Arappor, which is corruption. Now, when you encounter cases of corruption, it's not that you go around looking for cases of corruption, but when you encounter it, I mean, how do you take it up? I mean, in which manner do you take it up? Do you, for example, see a news item and then take it up, or is it at the instance of whistleblowers or any other way, or you've got your own secret detectives working for you?
It's a combination of things. I can give you some examples
I'm not going to ask you about any pending cases because that would be improper, but you can probably give us a few examples. No.
Definitely. No, let us not talk about the pending cases. Yes,
We would
some of these
love to
cases
talk
are in
about the
court.
pending cases, but we cannot. So we'll just take a few examples.
Right, right. But we can talk about, how we have identified some of these corruption and so on without taking these names and about the cases that are there. Right. So one of the things, for example, when you work as a organization, particularly on civic issues, the first thing that you hit upon is road. Laying of roads. In fact, we had a public meeting in Ramapuram talking about the poor condition of roads in Ramapuram and so on. And that is the kind of starting point for us to, for example, to start taking up why roads are so poor in condition in certain areas. And, to understand this whole issue of road laying. So we it almost took us 1 year. So this is a case where we started working on it voluntarily. There was no whistleblower. There was no, no news item that we particularly looked at. But we started developing a lot of interest in terms of understanding the issue behind road laying. One of the things that we found out in this whole road laying, this was particularly after the 2015 floods as well. So one of the issue behind the 2015 floods, there are many issues. One of the things that came to our notice is the increasing height of the roads. Because the height of the roads keep increasing, our houses goes down, the level of our houses goes down, and water comes into the houses. So this is something that's a complaint that started coming in from different places. And so we started looking at why is the road not being laid after taking it out from the subscribed surface, because this is what is being done in many other countries. So that's when what we found out was, so we did a lot of RTIs through right to information, we got a lot of data and so on. And what we got, we really didn't expect that we will get so much of information, that there is so much of information behind this whole road laying. One of the things that we found out was that this whole issue of not removing the existing surface, in fact, to remove the existing surface is there as part of the tender process already. So the milling process is there as part of the tender process, but that it's not being done throughout Chennai and many other places as well. So when we started inquiring why this is not happening, I mean, of course, on the other side, even to look, we also have to look from the people who do corruption. So when we look from, from the other side, let's say a contractor or an official wants to do corruption, in fact, doing more work is very useful for them, because that will also means that they can mint more money. So even from their angle, it looked very puzzling for us. Why are they not doing this? Because if they do it, maybe they will get more money. And that's when we found out something phenomenal. It's a kind of how technically this corruption takes place. For example, what we found out was that milling, just scratching of this surface, taking out the existing layer up to 40 mm. For this component, across a lot of tenders, we found that if the market rate, if the scheduled rate of the corporation is like 85 rupees per unit, they had quoted extremely low rates, like 3 rupees per unit. We found something 3 rupees per unit, 10 rupees per unit contractors quoting. Whereas on the other side, for bitumen layers, which is the top layer that you see when you go, they had quoted somewhere like 100% more than the existing rate. So if 2,700 was the rate for 10 square meters for the bitumen layer, for the 50 mm or 40 mm bitumen layer, they were quoting almost 5,000 to 6,000 rupees per unit for this. So we found a very severe contrast. So there were certain components where they were quoting plus 100%. There were certain components of the road where they were quoting minus 100%. And whichever component that they were quoting minus 100%, less than the scheduled rate, they skipped it from doing it. So they didn't do milling, they won't do, several other things like GSM. So there are a few other areas, components that we found that they were not doing while relaying of roads, and all these components had a minus 50%, minus 100% less than the schedule rate. And that's when we investigated, we found out that, when you have the tender, when you have some components as minus 100%, some components as plus 100%, it eventually balances out and becomes zero. Overall, when you put all the 20 components together, zero in the sense 0% more than the scheduled rate or less than the scheduled rate. So it may be plus 2%, minus 2%. So overall, the tender looks fine. But when you check the same percentages after the work is executed, so which means if you skip all your quotes where minus 100% is quoted or minus 50% is quoted, and if you only do the work for plus 50 and plus 100%, eventually you will find out that after the execution of the work, that this whole tender has been executed at almost 30 or 40% more than the existing schedule or the market rates. And this is how we found that this huge amount of money going into the drain on one side, and the entire set of syndicate and collusion that is happening, which is the matter of the case before the High Court. Let us not go into it. But this whole, how corruption happened is something that we were able to figure out. And we always believe in two kinds of ways of working on this. One is, of course, we need to proceed legally. We need to comply to the Directorate of Vigilance and Anti-Corruption. We need to move the court legally. And the legal process may take several years, and we are aware of it. So that is one area that we need to work on. But on the other side, as a citizens movement, as a people's movement, it is much more important to question these officials on why are they doing this. And so that is where we found a lot of success. In fact, a lot of citizens started, when we exposed this, when we kind of spread it across citizens, a lot of people in different parts of the city started coming out, and when the person came to lay the road, they started asking, why are you not milling? It is there as part of the tender. Why are you not milling? So we gave the tender documents to several citizens across the city. We told them that milling is part of the component. So you question when they come. And so at different places, people started questioning this. And what we found out was that, and at least in the last year, if you are traveling in Chennai, you will be able to see at least 60 to 70% of the roads today are being milled. There is a milling machine that's being used to even mill the interior roads. Earlier they used to do only the bus route roads, all the interior roads will not be milled. Today all the interior roads are also milled, and then not everyone, at least 60 to 70% we find is being done. That is because citizens came out and questioned. That is because citizens came and said that it's part of the tender. So when you inform citizens, informed citizenry can do a lot of wonders, is what we found. So the first road laid in 2019, we went and questioned them directly when they didn't do the milling. And that kind of set this whole thing together. And so this is, for example, this is one case where citizens got together, questioned, and have been able to change a lot of things. And there are other things, as I say, where does this come from? Once we have started exposing quite a few corruption, then there are whistleblowers. Even within this whole corporation issues, corruptions that we have exposed, there are a lot of whistleblowers who started coming and telling how corruption happens, how technically it happens, who gets benefited and all that. So nowadays, there are also whistleblowers in each department who have come out and have started giving us things about what is happening. There is also, so this is just one example to give. Like this, we have exposed corruption in procurement of coal. In fact, Tamil Nadu imported almost 2.5 crore metric tons of coal. And we found that almost just 6,000 crore worth of coal has been imported for 12,000 crores. And so one thing that we focus on is unless we get data, unless we get concrete data, you should not be in a situation where to tell people that what I say is true, what I say is true. It should be in a case where they infer it to be true, where they understand it to be true. So for that, you need to put out data. The data should convince people, the information should convince people that this is what is happening. And that is where we focus a lot. So unless we get concrete evidence to even convince ourselves, we won't expose any of these corruption. So that is something that where we have worked, and a lot of people in the background. See, you can imagine that this also involves a lot of people who have technical expertise, technical knowledge, and all that, who came together to do this kind of expression. So that's how we do it in every department
Okay,
So,
and this very important thing that you mentioned almost at the end regarding you should have data, you should have the information. Now, how important or how useful has the RTI, the Right to Information Act, been in this struggle, in this endeavor of yours? How important a role has it played? Have you been able to get quite a bit of information? See, if you're going to ask for 100 things, I'm sure you'll never get 100. But has it been at least a reasonable proportion to enable you to get information so as to question? Has it been enough? The Right to Information Act.
yes, I think Right to Information Act is an extremely powerful tool in the hands of common citizens. I mean, without RTI, we could not have done any of this, is what I would say. Any corruption that we had exposed, it is the significant amount of documents that we had got is through RTI, in fact. And it involves struggle. Of course, there are delays in RTAs because even though the official is supposed to give within 30 days, we see that many a times, unless you go to the Information Commission for the second appeal, you won't get data. But I would say that in our experience, in the amount of RTAs that we have put, around 60 to 70% of the data we do get at the stage of PIO or the first appeal itself. So within maybe it may take 2 to 3 months. So within 2 to 3 months, we get around 60% of the data. And the rest of them, once it goes to the Information Commission, we are able to get some more data as well. But RTI has been very powerful. Now, the question is about why are we getting data? We also need to look at this aspect because even though this RTI, we all know that, the way they have envisioned this RTI is that this is under freedom of speech and expression. For freedom of speech and expression, information is extremely crucial. But when you look from the government's point of view, in fact, there are some government departments who have even done training on how to not give information. Here, just like we do a lot of training on how to get information through RTA, there are also trainings that takes place in terms of how to not give information as well. So, but what we find is there are excellent, honest officials within every department. There are some good PIOs who are sitting inside as well. So when you ask them, so you should not as citizens assume that the government will not give you any data. And sit. You need to apply for RTI, you need to have the patience to do the first appeal, you need to follow up. And what we find is at least in 60 to 70% of the cases, we do get data, good data, and be it, for example, the coal order, the coal scam that I was talking about, it took only 25 days for us to get this whole set of documents from the Gadget Code Department, Tamil Nadu Electricity Code Department. So there are some excellent PIOs as well who are there. There are excellent officials who are there inside as well. In fact, even after this corporation thing, when I went for RTA inspection in some of these zonal offices, some of these officials, will just come in when I'm doing the inspection. One or two people in between, they will come and say, sir, I will not tell my name, but what you're doing this, what your group is doing is very, very useful to us. In the last 1.5 years, we have seen significant changes in the way corporation works. Continue to do it. We will help you with whatever is possible from inside. So I don't even know their names. I don't even know who are there. A lady who ran after I came out of an office, she ran to the lift and she told me, kindly do not leave what you're doing. Please keep up the pressure. There is significant amount of change happening inside. We are able to see today, as honest people, we are able to say no to the senior official. Because the way corruption happens is that there is a lot of pressure on this honest officials as well to sign and all that. And when such questioning comes from citizens, now these honest officials also find a way to say no. They get the courage to say no. I won't sign on this paper. If you want, you sign. And so such kinds of things have started happening. And we think that there are honest people in every department who are ready to change it. So unless citizens come and engage in it, question in it, it won't. And RTI has played a significant role in this whole sense of expose or taking it up legally.
Okay. Now you've told us something about water bodies and your struggle to reclaim and how what has happened in Villivakkam, in Pallikarnai, etc. Pallavaram, is it? Pallavaram also?
Yeah, Pallavaram Peri, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. These 3 or 4 places. You've also told us something about corruption. And because of the RTI and your struggles, etc., you've also indirectly told us that transparency is very, very important. Now, in all these circumstances, in all these situations, you are questioning the establishment for one reason or the other. So once you question the establishment, it's either the government or the ruling party or a minister or the concerned bureaucrats. So, which brings us to a rather filmy thing. Are there any safety issues or threats to either you personally or your group or whoever is the volunteer or batch of volunteers who are doing a particular expose, so to say? Are there any safety issues, threats, etc.?
Not much. I mean, it was not as bad as I used to fear. I mean, when we started this, of course, we used to think, when we take up these big corruption, we may have to face a lot of threats and all that. I mean, threats are of different kinds. There are definitely threats, but threats are of different kinds is what I feel, the threats that we face. Number one, is there a direct threat to your life, or direct threat to safety of you? I haven't at least had any direct threat in the last 5 years. There is, just like cinema, there's no one who have called me and said, I'll finish you off. Nothing of that sort. Nothing of that sort has happened, over the last 5 years. Secondly, there are a couple of instances after we did this corporation corruption and all that. There were a couple of instances where, 2 people who called me to say to be safe. They said, I'm worried, we are worried about your safety. There are things that are being planned, so you need to be safe. Now, I don't know whether this is a threat or a concern. When someone calls and tells you this, someone who is unknown to you calls and tells you that they are concerned about me. So I really don't know whether this is a threat or really a concern. But the kind of threats that we had to undergo is what happened was that, for example, after we did this corporation corruption and all that, one of the things that happened was we had to undergo a series of, there were almost 15 civil defamation cases that were filed against us. Okay, and when there was no injunction given by the court, in fact, a very good order came from the Honorable High Court on June 4, where injunction was not given. Basically, the injunction was asked that we should not talk about corruption. And they said it's our freedom of speech and expression. There were prima facie evidences as well. So therefore, we were allowed to talk about it. So that's a great thing. So, but once that happened, what we were able to see is that a series of different kinds of. A very senior police official called me, and when we were in a meeting, he told me to go and meet a very senior minister. He said that you sort out the issues with the minister and then things will be all right. We said that, no, we can't do that. We can't, of course, do that and so on. And we came out and we said we will only fight this legally and came out. And right after that, so from July this happened in June of 2019. From July, we faced a series of attacks. Now, one type of attack is that a series of false cases were filed against us. So on July 13, 15 and 19, 3 FIRs were filed against me. So we used to audit, do a social audit of a lake. So just for auditing a lake, a case was filed. To talk about an encroachment of a police station sitting on a lake using the RTA data of CMDA, FIR was filed on this. So like this series of FIRs. Much more importantly, we used to have what is called the awareness meetings called Know Your Rights, where every Know Your Rights meeting, there are hundreds of citizens who used to come in We used to train them on Right to Information Act. We trained them on how to complain on civic issues to corporation using the Namma Chennai app and all this. So this session we used to do in different community halls in different places. So they started threatening, police started threatening the community hall owners to not give us these meeting places. So they, in fact, gave a letter to these owners of the mandapam saying that if you give this hall to the group, then we will take action against you. So things like that started happening. So right from that, probably I think I have around 12 FIRs or so on me, criminal FIRs on me. There is a criminal defamation case, 15 civil defamation cases. So all this started happening right from that point of time. And so this is the kind of threat I would say that we face. But as a group, we know that this is going to happen. These are things that we will try. And as long as we do the right thing, see, there are certain things that we ensure from our side. One is we strongly believe in the Constitution of India. So we make sure that, and we strongly believe in non-violence as well. So therefore, we also ensure that whoever volunteers comes up, we have a detailed orientation session to each of these volunteers, training them on many of these things as well. So it's not easy for us to put a real FIR on us, where we violated the law. It is only possible for them to put a false FIR or fake FIR, which we think we can always, once it goes to the court, we will be relieved of many of these cases in the later stages. So that is one part. And on the other part, we also try to use it as an opportunity. When such cases are filed on us, we show it to people, how when you challenge the establishment, what kinds of cases are being filed. We read out, for example, something of this case you would not even heard, where, we book a hall for Know Your Rights. The police official goes and threatens the mandapam owner, gives a letter that they will take action against the mandapam owner. And then a couple of days later, what happens is that that once the mandapam owner cancels it, we have to cancel the Know Your Rights. It's a free session for citizens. A couple of days later, the same inspector files an FIR on me, saying that we have cheated the public by not conducting the program. So these are the kinds of FIRs that is being filed on us. So we are very confident that such FIRs will not hold water when it goes to the court and other places. So therefore, in a way, we think that this is something that we will have to fight it out. And so far, it has been. We feel that we have been able to successfully get past some of these threats that we get in.
Okay, it's a good thing that you mentioned the various FIRs against you. 12 against you personally.
Yeah, I lost the count, but yeah, somewhere around that 12, 13, 11, 12.
I'm never going to socialize with a person who's got 12 FIRs against him. Anyway, that's a different thing. 12 FIRs against you, false cases according to you, alleged false cases, etc. And various things where you will have to necessarily prove something in court. So either to challenge certain actions or to defend certain actions against yourself, you will have to necessarily approach the court. You will have to necessarily approach the court, and you are, let's put it in simple terms, you're a social worker, let me put it that way. Okay, you're not a lawyer. So you will have to necessarily approach court, for which you need the assistance of lawyers. So let's come to the most basic thing of mankind, money. How does Arappor Iyakkam finance this? I'm sure, because I'll ask you, I'll tell you why I'm asking this. I'm sure there will be a lot of people, because if we don't have anything on paper, we will immediately say you're receiving foreign funding. Okay, that's why I'm asking you. How is it possible? Because there are so many cases against you. How do you manage to, number one, I've met a few of your lawyers, these young fellows like Balaji, etc. No doubt. He does it as a passion. I know Suresh as well, who's appeared for you in some cases. So, but ultimately, you need some expenditure for that. How does Arappor manage it?
Yeah, so there are two things in this. Number one, I will talk about the financial part, the fundraising part of it, which is when, as a group of citizens, when we question the government, on transparency and accountability, it is extremely important in the first place for us to be transparent. you know. So, in fact, if you go to our website, arappor.org, you will be able to see in the account section, we have put our balance sheet as well as the list of donors and how much amount that they have donated for the last several years. So, right from 2015, you will be able to see it on our website. We think it's extremely important to put this out. What we have seen is that there are, Arappor is a completely people-funded organization. So there are lots of citizens who donate to Arappor Iyakkam. It starts with 100 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, all the way till there are people who have even donated 50,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, and so on. The reason I think, and we have never had a situation where we had to face a heavy financial crunch. Not that we have a lot of money in the bank account. So if you take our bank account right now, when I talk to my treasurer, it will be somewhere around maybe 70,000 or so. That would be the balance in our bank account today, for example. So, but every month we do have an expense. We have an office. We have a few full-timers, 4 or 5 full-timers who take care of administration work and other kinds of work as well. We do campaigns and all that. So this involves a spending of at least 1.5 lakhs a month, 1 to 1.5 lakhs a month. So therefore, we raise it from citizens. And what we have seen in these 5 years is that never there had been a situation where we had to stop doing some work because we did not have money. Whenever we have asked for money from people, people are ready to do it. All they want is people to do credible work, people to do work of questioning and all that. So it's completely funded by volunteers, supporters, and so on. So this is on one side. So we are completely transparent about it, and we have put it on our website as well. And I also think for people who wants to do this kind of work, money is never an issue, because there are always good-hearted people all over who are ready to donate to you if you do good work. Number one. Number two, on the cases side, where many of these cases, as I said, just like honest officials within departments, I see people who are passionate about these things in every profession, and there are advocates who have come forward, who have been appearing for many of our cases pro bono. There is in fact, if there's in fact, we have spent the least on our legal issues so far. If you look at our expenses, primarily because many of these advocates came forward, so they do see the kind of work that we do. So be it Dr. Suresh, be it Sudharamaningam, many of these people who have come forward, who have been supporting us with these cases, they have been doing pro bono. So of course the legal papers issues and all that, those are the smaller expenses that we spend for. So that's how we manage, and in every department, see, it's not only advocates, software professionals. For example, in the last election, we came up with an app where we, all these affidavits where the criminalities of candidates, the assets of candidates are declared. We developed an app where a person in a constituency can look at this app, go into this constituency and check who are all the candidates who is standing in this constituency, what is the asset background, what is the criminal background of each of these candidates, and decide for himself or herself whom to vote for. So we came up with this. It was completely developed by volunteers who sat, in the morning they used to go to the companies, but in the night they used to come and sit until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the night to develop these apps free of cost. So I think this volunteering time is something that we have to take into account. It's not only money and finance, but it's also the volunteering time, the quality volunteering time of people of different skills. So legal skill, be it the software skill, be it people who are working on the ground. So all of these, it's a combination of all these efforts that has made it possible. So whatever we have been able to do so far.
Okay. And since you've said this, I'm sure you're so passionate that you're not reading the chat box. There is another offer from an advocate called Ajay Francis that he is willing to do it pro bono for you. I will pass on Ajay's number to you.
Sure.
Okay. So now tell me, Jayaram, just in one line, this Arappor Iyakkam, is it a trust?
Yes, it's registered as a trust.
Trust is
It's registered as a trust.
Okay.
The way we function is we have a democratic body. So even though I may be a managing trustee, the power has been delegated to a bigger group, which is we have a 27-member state body which meets every month, decides about the way the organization should, the areas the organization should focus on, what are the work that we should take up and do, and so it is this group that decides every month on the kind of work that has to be done. And to implement it, we have a convener, a treasurer. So I act as a convener to do this work. There is a treasurer, there is a joint convener. And so, yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm sure, like you said, there are people doing all kinds of works for Arappor, starting from being the face of it, like you and a few others, people who do the field work, like many others, people who do behind the scenes jobs, many others, including professionals, you said. How do you enlist volunteers? I mean, for example, if do you have a screening process? How do you enlist volunteers?
Right. So we have
volunteers. And before you start answering, has there been a Trojan horse in between?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we do is we have of course a volunteer registration form. It's on our website. It's there in our office and so on. So anyone can enlist them as a volunteer. They want to express interest for volunteering with that form. But after that, what happens is that we go through a one-day orientation process. So there is a orientation process that we get volunteers to attend, and that is where we talk about constitutional principles. The dream of the constitution and what is that we are working for, and take them through the way of work. See, one of the things that we talk about, if you take movements across the place, one of the issues that we have is also people talk about others in a very disrespectful way, in a very this kind of respectful way of talking is a serious issue, is what we feel. So in fact, we tell our volunteers that we may be opposing someone's corruption, we may be opposing someone, but that doesn't give us the right to be disrespectful of them. We should not address them in singular. In fact, one of the very senior police officials used to tell me, I used to tell them, we never talk about others in a disrespectful way. So he said, நீக்குமே வந்து அவன் ஒரு அயோக்கியன்னே சொல்ல மாட்டேன், அவர் ஒரு அயோக்கியர்னு தான் சொல்லுவேன். So this is, but I think that it's extremely important that you respect. You can't. There is a dignity for every person. So even the people that you have to oppose their corruption or something, it doesn't mean that you should be hit under the belt. So you can't talk about their personal lives. So these are issues that we train volunteers on. We train volunteers on what are the things that we need to be very careful about. So and our way of working, the importance of non-violence. So all these things, it's a one-day program that we go through, and how data is very critical. So there are many corruption that I might not have ended exposing because there is not enough data. There is work in progress. There are corruption issues where we are working for almost 2 years, still we have not exposed it because there is not enough data. We are still working on the data. So how information is extremely crucial. So these are things that we train them and get them to agree on these sets of principles. So we have a series of 9 principles that we also get our volunteers to express their concern. So then, as they work with us, we enlist them as active volunteers. So this is the thing that we go through. Yes, there are people who came in as a spy, who wanted to find out something from the other camp and all that. That has happened. at least 2 or 3 we were able to find it out. There may be some we may not have been able to find out. But see, there is nothing that what we always feel is there is nothing that they can, even though they are there, they can't do much, because as long as you are open about what you do, as long as there is nothing illegal or anything that's happening inside, so you don't need to worry about these people. But the way we find them is that, when they express a lot of interest, so they will call a lot of people to try asking about me or someone else about what he does, what is his profession, what is he doing otherwise. These kinds of questioning that they do with a lot of volunteers. So they come and tell us, this is what is going on with this volunteer. So that's how we have found one of the people, how they do this. But otherwise, it's quite an open organization. So even for those people, I think we hope that after some time, maybe they also will undergo the change and become more volunteer.
And these spies or guys inside the Trojan horse, you treat them also with respect?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Now, if, for example, some people who are watching the show, some people want to join, what would you suggest in terms of what would be the level of their involvement in terms of time, effort, and safety?
Yes, it depends on each of you. If you are a full-time worker at a place, then you only have weekends to spare. And there are different kinds of background works that you can really help us out with. So, for example, if the election is coming next year, we'll be working on ways we can create informed citizenry, how to get information about every candidate in every constituency to all the people. We will work on, if you are interested in water bodies, then we have, in fact, what is called the ward program. So you take responsibility for your ward. If you're interested in doing that, then we have a series of training programs through which how you can take up some of these civic issues. We guide them with taking some of these civic issues in their area to address them and so on. So we call them as a ward representative. So far we have trained for more than 100 wards of Chennai. We have trained people who are interested in taking responsibility for their ward, not standing in the elections. It's not about an electoral ward councillor. It's about people's politics. We call it. See, we are not into electoral politics, but we are in people's politics, where we need people who will take up responsibility for their ward to look at the issues in each of their ward. So you can be part of those ward programs, start understanding civic issues, start questioning them, start making changes in your ward. Or if you are a skilled person with a specific thing, you are a software engineer, you are a field worker, you may have different kinds of skills. So whichever area suits you, you'll be able to, you can volunteer in that area. Of course, with this COVID, we are constrained with the field work and other areas. So hopefully, after this issue gets sorted out, the field work will start.
Okay.
These are different areas where volunteers can come, and fear is something every one of us should let go of. And if anything that Arappor has shown in the last 5 years, I would say the biggest achievement is that common citizens can come forward without fear, question the establishment of the maladministration and corruption, support them wherever their support is needed. A lot of good officials have said, please support us, we are trying to do something, and there is a lot of political pressure on us for doing this. So it's important that we support the administration wherever it's needed. So it is something that we have to do without fear. So let go of fear. It's a process. Once you join, over time, we have seen people who are extremely, who feared about, what will happen to them. Today, they are in the forefront fighting many things. So it's a process. It will happen over time, but be ready for questioning and do join us.
Okay. Now, your actual trust and your managing committee, so to say, loosely worded managing committee, you said consists of around 27 people, correct?
Right.
Now, how many people are there in your organization per se? I mean, people who you would love to call volunteers. I mean, how many of them? Are they in a few hundreds or a few thousands?
See, we have in our database people who have come to our events, who have volunteered, in one or two issues and so on. So we have around 6,000 such people who have been our supporters, who have been volunteer for one events and so on. But actively volunteering with many issues, we have around 300 people who have been consistently doing it with many issues, and these 300 people pretty much form the active volunteering group that has been doing things. But whenever it comes to events, when we organize a bigger event, the rest of them comes and pitches in. So when we did this Mylapore event on Kolai and all that, so there were almost 2,000 people, more than 2,000 people who had come. So many of them active supporters and volunteers as well.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about this really active, consistently active people of around, active body of around 300, are we talking only about the actual people who were instrumental in this Arappor organization, or are we talking about the family as well? I mean, how important a role does the spouse and the family play? Because it seems to be more of something that all your families are focused on. How important a role does the spouse and the family play?
They play an extremely crucial role, because without their support, I don't think, if you don't have peace at home, I don't think you can come and do this work. So it is also extremely important that we are very fortunate that many of the families have over time understood the need of this. They have been actively supporting our movement. So if you take my own thing, my family does a lot of support. So whenever, in fact, an event happens, the whole family comes to the event as well.
No, I don't think your spouse had a choice.
They spend time as well.
Jayaram, I don't think your spouse had a choice.
It is definitely a matter of choice.
Okay.
No, not that way. Definitely she has a choice, but yeah.
Okay.
But see, she was very active in. She has been very, very active in supporting me right through this journey. Right from the start. Because when we got married, in fact, I told her, before marriage, I of course told her that I'm going to go into the social work, I'm going to do all these things. Maybe she didn't know pretty much what that means really. But after marriage, I told her that I gave her 6 months. I told her that you take 6 months, because immediately after marriage, I told her I want to get into social work. She said, you go and do it full time. I don't mind it. You please do it. I also like it, so you please do it. I told her, no, let's wait for 6 months. Even after 6 months, if you feel that I should still do it, I will then do it. Okay, so that's what I told her, and even after 6 months, she said, no, my decision has not changed. You should still go and do what you like. So I think that support, that moral support, is something extremely important at home if you have to do this work. And I think not only my family, many families. So when I talk about these 27 people or 300 volunteers, each of their families have over time understood the importance of this. Importance of this question, importance of engaging in this democracy, making this meaningful democracy. So I think whenever we do events, a lot of our volunteers bring their kids, bring women to the event, and a lot of our women volunteers bring their spouses as well to the event. So this is a thing that has kind of unless we do this, unless there is family support, I don't think you can do this over a long period of time. This is a long battle. This is something that we have to do for, until we die probably, and then the next set of generation will take over and do. But so for that to happen, I think family support is extremely crucial.
Okay. Purely in a lighter vein, this first time you got arrested, was it prior or after marriage?
It was after marriage.
Because if it had been prior to marriage, there would have been no marriage.
Possible. In fact, when I came back from the US in 2007, so my parents were very upset. So they said, no, this guy, see, in fact, 2007, after 2 years, the general thing that happens is that in this financial research, from California, they go to New York, because your salary doubles. If you go from California to New York after 2 years of experience. So that's what people do. And so when I told my boss as well, they were puzzled. Why do you want to go to India? In fact, I thought you were going to resign and go to New York. New York. So that is how it all started. But when they came back, my parents were very upset. My parents, I mean, on one side they were happy that I'm coming back, but on the other side they were very unhappy that I'm talking about some social work and all that. So in fact, I had got, as a stopgap arrangement, I had a full-time job after I came back. I worked with a bank on financial research again. But then my parents said, nothing doing, we will get you married. You convince your wife. If your wife is okay with it, we are also fine. So they were very confident that my wife will not allow me. Very, very confident about it. So I also thought that, eventually I have to face it. If not now, maybe 1 or 2 years later, then I had to anyway face this situation. So I said, okay, let me get done with marriage first. So I also agreed to it. And then I found, it was an arranged marriage, but Anusha, my wife, was extremely supportive of what I wanted to do. So that was definitely, without that support, it is not possible for me to do until this day what I am doing.
Okay. Last 3 things that I want to ask. Is there anybody that you look up to for in this particular field as, a person who has sort of inspired you in this particular field of upholding citizens' rights, or somebody who's been questioning the establishment for the good of the public, somebody who's questioned the establishment for basic civic amenities, etc.? Is there somebody that you have looked up to, you or your organization, whoever?
I think there is not one person that we can name specifically. There are several people. Over time, there are several people who have inspired me, I would say. Of course, for many of us in this field, we all look up to Gandhi, right? Gandhi and his life, how he has fought the British. But, and of course, Ambedkar and other people. But, when I was in the US, I had met with several people who have been doing this kind of work. There used to be a person in Karnataka who was fighting the illegal mining. A person called Hiremat was fighting the illegal mining. So I came to know about it. I interacted with him a lot. There is a person called Balaji in Tamil Nadu who went to a lot of villages taking a campaign on education, quality education and everything. So all these people have been a lot of inspiration for me over time. And of late, people like, advocates like Suresh, Sudaram, who has, in their own ways taking up many of these issues as well, and have been doing over time. So there are several people at several points of time, I would say, have inspired us in this journey and continue to inspire us. And much more importantly, the other set of people, you should not forget that it is the common citizens that inspires us day in and day out. There are people, in a way, I am more privileged. I think it's much more easier for me to come out and do this work. But for someone, for whom their own livelihood is at stake, their own issues are at stake, it's not that easy. But we see day in and day out people, volunteers in villages and in Chennai, coming out and questioning many of these things. There is a volunteer who came out and questioned the road cut, illegal road cut. He got police pulled him into the police station. We had to go to the police station as 7 or 8 people and do it. But still, his courage to question whenever there is a illegal thing that happens, whenever people's rights are denied, the way of questioning of common people, I think that inspires us a lot. When people like them can question, even when their own livelihood may be at stake, when their own issues are at stake, but still they come out and say that I will stand by truth, I want to get justice for people, I want to fight for their rights. I think that is what inspires us day in and day out.
Okay. Then next one. நம்ம இந்த செஷனை பத்தி ஆரம்பிக்கும் போது, you remember I asked you for a photograph to put up on Facebook. அப்போ you sent me this group photograph. Okay. So that in essence is what I have understood from whatever you've spoken today, that Arappor Iyakkam is a concerted initiative by many, many people. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. According to you, whether it is Arappor Iyakkam, which is just a collective name for the entire group, or your group, which is behind this Arappor Iyakkam, what is the best thing that you have achieved? It could even be awareness among the general public, or is it anything specific? For example, like the tender cancellation or something like that. Is awareness the most important thing that you have achieved? Illana vande specific edavadhu iruka?
I would say, I mean, I'll just, in a very short, in a couple of minutes, I'll just explain you like maybe 4 or 5 key achievements.
Sure.
Very, very short. See, number one, I would always say that this awareness and questioning, getting a lot more people onto the road to question. Onto the road doesn't mean protest. There are a lot of ways in which in a democracy people can question, and to get a lot of people out of their houses to question, I think this is our biggest achievement, I would say. But apart from that, there are key things like when we brought out the coal issue, even though the issue is still, the legal part is still in court, the government agreed to change its policy. We were able to pressurize and make the government change its policy. So from 2018, government of Tamil Nadu started procuring coal at almost $10 to $15 less than market price for every metric ton of coal. Until that point of time, they were procuring almost $20 per metric ton more than the market rate. So in a stroke of changing the policy to reverse bidding, pressurizing them and changing to reverse bidding, we were almost able to save thousands of crores for the exchequer. Again, in this civic issue, the road issue, what we were able to do is that getting the government to not only do milling, get the government to set right things on one side, and to cancel a lot of tenders which were not right. So when the evidences are strong on their face, even though they denied corruption, even though it still stands as an allegation of corruption, but they understood that a lot of things are wrong has happened, and they cancelled. I think Chennai Corporation has cancelled at least 300 to 400 crores of tenders. Metro Water cancelled 70 crores of tenders. Now BharatNet tender worth almost 2,000 crore has been cancelled after the central government's DPIIT gave an order in favor of what we had said. So all these cancellations also gave a lot of confidence, and also this helps in correcting the department. Much more importantly, what we have also been able to achieve is get some government departments to work. See, Directorate of Vigilance and Anti-Corruption in 2014, 15, 16, 17, they did 0 raids. So they are supposed to raid RTO offices, registrar offices. They need to do the surprise checks, to make sure that the corruption is in check. We found through RTI that in these 4 years, up to July of 2017, they did 0 raids. And that meant that they were failing in their fundamental duty. So we did a huge campaign. And after the campaign, we went and met the director, we did a campaign. So we did rest in peace DVAC, we said. If you're spending 55 crores a year, you have 400 employees, and this fundamental duty of surprise checks is not being done. Between August 2017, after we did this campaign, between August 2017 and March 2019, in 1.5 years, they did 200 random searches. So from 0, it went all the way to till 200. So we were able to even make a department work through RTA and Citizens Campaign. Information Commission, State Information Commission were hearing a lot lesser cases. They were only hearing 50 cases per Information Commissioner, whereas the norm is 200 cases per month per Information Commissioner. We brought this out with data, how over the years, the number of cases being heard keeps decreasing from 150, how it has come down to 50 cases per month per Information Commissioner. Once we did a campaign, in fact, when we met the Chief Information Commissioner, she said, you gave us, we sent her brew coffee packets. We said, wake up, SIC. We sent them brew coffee packets. A lot of citizens started sending brew coffee packets to them. So she said, when I met her, she said, we didn't know what to do with this brew coffee packet because, as per government rules, whatever we get, we are supposed to keep it in file. But how we can keep this brew coffee packet in file is something that was very nice. So we used the brew coffee, the powder to make coffee for us, but we kept the packet alone in the file to show them that, that these came to our office. So, but they did improve. They promised that they will improve. And in 2019, if you take the average number of cases heard by State Information Commission, it increased to almost 130 or 140. Still, they have to get to 200. But these are some of the achievements where, again, Villayakkam lake restoration, Villayakkam lake restoration or other lake restoration. So these are some of the key achievements that I would say, where citizens coming forward, that we are able to make restore water bodies, challenge corruption and reduce it, and also make government departments work and make them much more transparent and accountable to people.
Okay. Okay. In simple words, probably the last thing that I have to ask you, where and what are your future plans? And do you have any kind of a blueprint or a roadmap in your mind or in your organization's radar?
So in the first 5 years, see, when we started, we never thought that we will be able to do some of these. Even these are smaller things only, but we never thought even we would be able to do some of these things initially. So we always wanted the first few years to be spent in Chennai. We wanted to build the templates. In fact, Arappor Iyakkam is right now only in Chennai. We have not expanded beyond Chennai so far. But in the next 5 years, what we have decided is that we want to expand to other districts of Tamil Nadu. There are lots of volunteers, people who are registered as volunteers who have been calling us, telling us that we need to expand in other districts as well. So in the next 5 years, we are hoping to take Arappor into other districts of Tamil Nadu. So we definitely want to take up issues, see, agriculture and other things has been my passion. So we need to work on many of these issues, question on many of these issues in different districts as well. So that is one thing that we have planned, the expansion of Arappor into other districts. And the other important area that we have is that we want to do is that we have taken up specific areas of work where we want to ensure, build a model template on coming up with models of transparency and accountability. We see, to address corruption, there are only 3 ways we think that it could be addressed. Number 1 is transparency and accountability. Number 2, to make institutions independent. Institutions investigating corruption like the DVAC or Lokayukta independent. So we need to work on making the independent institutions independent. And on the other side, we need to make these government departments transparent and accountable. Number 3, get citizens engaged a lot, take power directly into the hands of people. So decentralize as much as possible, get area sabhas and ward sabhas, just like Gram sabhas, you need area sabhas and Gram sabhas in cities. In fact, for example, Chennai had passed an amendment for area sabha all the way in 2010. But till date, it has not been implemented. We don't have area sabha meeting. We don't have meetings in our neighborhood where citizens can take decisions. So when citizens are involved in the decision-making process, that will again question and address corruption issues. So I think these are the ways in which we want to do. So at least we want to replicate this. We want to ensure that this happens in specific areas like health, public health department, civic issues, primarily in corporations across different districts. So these are things that we have planned for in the next 5 years.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jayaram. Thank you very much. The thing that I really liked about the last 5 minutes was, though you have been questioning the establishment at loggerheads with the government, the ruling party, ministers, bureaucrats, etc., you have been fair enough to give credit where it has been due, in the sense that you have said that when it was 0, now it is around 200 insofar as the surprise tests are concerned. And that is one aspect that I think is very, very essential for effectively a watchdog such as yours. So thank you very much for sharing your journey so far. But I'm sure there is a long road ahead, and I'm sure the journey is just started. All the very, very best to most importantly Balaji, who put me on to you, Balaji Advocate, who put me on to you,
Yeah.
and the rest of your organization and your families, and all the best to your wife and your two daughters. It's an hour and 45 minutes since you came on air, so I'm sure they must be ready to kill you. Thank you very much for sharing whatever you've said so far. I'm sure it's been an eye-opener. I'm sure a lot of people know about this, but I'm sure it's been an eye-opener for people who've not heard you or listened to you, or understood exactly what is the purpose behind your organization and your thoughts behind it. Thank you very much, and we'll keep in touch.
Sure. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. And I also want to conclude with one more thing. And
Sure,
many people
sure.
think that people's movement, it's a very serious thing. We also have a lot of fun. So it's also a lot of fun. When many of these things happens, we also take it in a very lighter way. When there's a false FIR, you also take it in a very lighter way and laugh about it, laugh about the contents of the FIR. And so you get together, and when you do that, you will be able to do this over a long time. So it's also a lot of fun. It's not only just very serious issues, and when you get together as a team and do it, it's also a lot of fun. So maybe many of them, and it's not necessary that people should join Arappor. They wherever they are, whatever that they do, I think if you are able to come out, question the system, support the system in whatever way possible, and make sure that you spend at least some quality time for building this nation, achieving the dream of our constitution, that would be great. So that would be my appeal as well. And thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Okay, just 1 minute. We'll play a slightly risky game. Let's find out whether anybody in the audience wants to ask you any question.
Sure.
Is there anybody who would like to ask Jayaram anything? Nobody seems to be. Ajay Francis. Wilson, can you please unmute Ajay Francis? Ajay Francis is a lawyer, so Jayaram, be on your guard.
Sure.
Yeah. Ajay, where are you? Hi. Unmute yourself. Yeah. Yes, Ajay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I am here in the vet, taking care of one of my pets. So I just want to say it's not a question, so I don't want to, take anything off. But there is a saying by Edwin Brooke where he says, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. So I actually want to congratulate, and I'm in great salute to Jayaram and his wife and two daughters, because in the world where we are all bothered about, running over small things, this is what is really required. So hats off to you, and thank you so much for what you're doing. And I will be also extending my support on the legal fraternity if you would ever need so.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ajay.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you. We have Revati with something to ask Jayaram. Revati is also a lawyer, so Jayaram, this is நேரம் சரியில்லை இன்னைக்கு அவ்வளவுதான் சொல்லுவேன். You are encountering all lawyers today. Yes, Revati, unmute yourself. Wilson, unmute Revati. Revati, yes.
Yes, sir. I've requested to unmute, sir.
Yeah, Revati, Wilson has given you permission. You'll have to unmute yourself now.
I think she has some problem.
Okay. Anybody else? Right.
Two people are waiting.
Wilson, you're trying to unmute Revati R.
Yes.
Please
That's unmuted.
Revati S.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's
Ah.
unmuted now.
We had a small problem with your initial, either your husband's name or your father's name. I'm sorry, Revati, please.
Yeah, good evening, Shriram, and good evening,
Hi.
Mr. Jayaram. I just have a small question. I'm sure your work involves working up close with bureaucrats and all these IAS officials. It's just a matter of curiosity for me. I'm not naming anybody. I don't expect you to name anybody either. We can just keep it very general. Now we have this small breed of IAS officers who patently proclaim to be very honest and upright and all that. It is very intriguing to find out, are they really all that honest and upright for real? I'm not asking about. I'm not asking you if there are any honest officers at all. I'm not that pessimistic. I'm sure there are many of them, but I'm asking particularly about those few who put up a very patently public face of honesty and straightforwardness and all that. Are they really all that?
See, what we have found is that, of course, you also know this, that there are different levels of honesty that people display. So I think, the level of honesty that we as citizens expect is where it's not only being, taking money or, not taking money or something, but it's also about wherever you have to, like if they are in a stage of approving a tender, today what we find is that different departments, these IAS officials who are there as heads of the department, turn a blind eye. When they see corruption that is happening in their department, they are not ready to put their foot down and say that this should not happen. Many of them just turn away from that corruption and move on. I think, now whether you call these officials honest or not honest is again a question. So there are different levels of honesty. There are some officials who put their foot down and say, no, I will not accept it. In fact, in one of our recent corruption expose that came out very, very clearly when we did the fiber optic expose. So, that there are different levels. There are some very, very, I think there are very, very few officials who are really honest. But there are also officials who say that I want to be in this key position. So being in this key position means I should not take action on this corruption. I will turn away from whatever corruption that happens between my juniors and my seniors. So I will just act as though I don't know anything about it. So there are a lot of people who claim that they are honest are in this kind of layer. Which I would say actively supports the corruption that happens as well. So definitely, people who are really honest is a very, very small percentage.
Yeah, thank you. I think that is as specific as you can get. Thank you.
Thank you, Revati. Jayaram, there are two questions in the chat box. One from A.Kailasam saying that, painting a very, very bleak picture, saying that corruption will be there for all times. We need to keep a fight against that. So what plan do we have to build a system to take it forward? Ensure good volunteers for Arappor?
See, as I said, it's extremely important that we build systems of transparency and accountability. When we have Right to Information Act, which says, Section 4 of the Act says that there are several things from circulars to everything that the government should keep it transparent on their website. You will find today that none of the departments have actually adhered to this transparency which is sought even in the Act. So we should build a system where these things are displayed transparently. Accountability is a very key issue. Now, if you take a thing like a ration card or any service that a citizen goes and accesses in a government department, what happens is that there is what is called the citizen's charter. In 15 days time, this service must be given to the citizen. If it is a land record, land registration, if it is about an income certificate, if it is about anything, the 15 days is the time. Now, in 15 days, if the official doesn't give it, what is the penalty? What is the action that can be taken on the official? There is absolutely no accountability on the official. So we need to have a grievance redressal mechanism. We need to have a grievance redressal law that has been pending for a long time, where you fix violation of citizens' charter must be made an offense. Actions must be taken on the official who violates the citizens' charter, and that is how we can reduce corruption over a long time. So establishing transparency and accountability. And the other thing that as I already said, institutions of democracy. Today, see, democracy is not only about people voting, it's also about these institutions that we have to save. We are seeing that many of these institutions are becoming puppets, and that is a very, very serious issue we need to address. We need to make sure people investigating. So that's why, when we talk about Lokayukta needs to be an independent, powerful body to investigate corruption. Today, it's being made a puppet kind of institution with absolutely no power in the state, for example. And for that matter, even in India, we are not seeing anything happening. So, therefore, institutions are very, very key. And number 3, we need to build systems wherein power is given in the hands of citizens. Citizens must engage. We need to have areas sabhas, Ward sabhas, where citizens take up decision making, given the power of decision making, and they participate in this democracy much more. Voting is not about once in 5 years, it's about how we participate in between these 5 years to make this a meaningful democracy. So we need to build systems for each of this, and that is the only way I think we can reduce corruption.
Okay. There's 3-4 questions that have come up in the meanwhile, and one of it, actually 2 of it should actually probably be clubbed together. What does it take to expand to other districts of Tamil Nadu, from Jayanti? And the next one from Ramu saying, village development funds are getting misused. Can you focus on that as well? I would presume that Jayanti means what is the infrastructure or the money, monetary aspect required to, expand to other districts. But that, as you probably explained, you're not thinking of spending any money, are you? It's basically on a voluntary basis.
Yeah, we are a voluntary movement. Our expenses are quite minimal, and we do not foresee expense or finance as a main problem. What we foresee as a problem is that the set of values, the set of understanding that one needs to have. So when we start in the district, we should be able to transfer this knowledge, as well as ensure that in principle people who are there in every district are able to come together and address this issue by working together. So there is quite a bit of time that needs to be spent with each of this district unit once we start. So before that, we wanted to develop a few templates. So today we know how to address corruption in civic issues in a corporation. How to address issues in public health department that happens. So these are templates that we have developed over the last 5 years. I think which will help when we get to districts, because we should be able to tell people in the districts as well how to go about some of these things, how to collect data, how to infer from it. So we will be able to train them on it. So we need to spend quality time. So that is the key issue that we will be facing. And number 2, yes, village funds are misused a lot, and therefore that is a very, very key thing that we need to focus on. We hope that once we expand into district and do all these things, so these things can be taken up. So in the next 5 years, that is our plan, to expand into pretty much all districts of Tamil Nadu over 5 years. We don't want to do it overnight in all districts, because that would mean it would dilute everything and you will not have a quality team. that will be really able to do anything useful. So we should do it with quality, starting each and every district at a specific point of time.
Okay, we have Gerald who's raised his hand. Gerald, Wilson, can you unmute Gerald for a minute? Wilson?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Gerald is spelled with a J.
Yes, sir. I just
Yeah.
asked him to unmute.
Gerald, can you unmute yourself?
I think we can see him in.
Gerald has switched on his video. Gerald, you'll, yes, Gerald.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, கேக்குதுங்க சொல்லுங்க.
Hello. சார் இப்போ இந்த மாதிரி ஆக்டிவிசம்னால எங்காவது ஓவர் கில் ஆயிருமோன்னு எனக்கு ஒரு டவுட். லைக் சே ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ரோட் மில்லிங்னா அது ரோட் மில்லிங் வந்து எவ்வளவு தூரம் எல்லா இடத்துலயும் பாசிபிள்ங்கிறது தெரியல. ஸோ பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் தட் மேபி அந்த ரோடவே ஒரு மோசமான ரோடவே லே பண்ணாம போயிடுவாங்களோ. திஸ் இஸ் அன் எக்ஸாம்பிள். வாட் ஐம் ஆஸ்கிங் இஸ், நம்ம எல்லாத்தையும் கொஸ்டின் கேட்டோம்னா whether it will become an overkill அந்த மாதிரி இது. That's what my question is.
நான் என்ன நினைக்கிறேன்னா, it is extremely important if the issue is there or not.
Okay.
இப்போ உதாரணத்துக்கு a month back in the MMBA area இருந்து citizens came forward and said எங்களோட சிமெண்ட் ரோட வந்து அவங்க போட போறாங்க, we are opposing it. ஏன்னா வந்து இங்க சிமெண்ட் ரோடு வந்து ஆல்ரெடி இருக்கு, இதுக்கு மேல சிமெண்ட் ரோடு போட்டாங்கன்னா எங்க வீடு ரொம்ப கீழே போயிடும். வீடு கீழே போயிடுச்சு, மழை வந்தாலே எங்க வீட்டுக்குள்ள தண்ணி வரும். ரெயின் வாட்டர் ஹார்வெஸ்டிங் ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் எதுவுமே பில்ட் பண்ண மாட்டேங்கிறாங்க. Now we provided an avenue where we can take this up to the corporation. We told that this should not be done in this way. You should not increase the road height. நீங்க வந்து அதை எடுக்கணும்னு சொல்லிட்டு cement concrete roads, they are not willing. Even today, the rest 30-40% of the road that are not built together, the cement concrete roads are மேலேயே போடுறாங்க. So when we did this, corporation went there. Actually, இன்னைக்கு அந்த ரோட பேத்து எடுத்துட்டு அது மேல வந்து சிமெண்ட் கான்கிரீட் ரோட் போடுறாங்க. அது மட்டும் இல்லாம அங்க 4 ரெயின் வாட்டர் ஹார்வெஸ்டிங் ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் கிரியேட் பண்றதுக்கான வழி கிரியேட் பண்றாங்க. So இதெல்லாம் extremely important. Once citizens engage, that is when they will get the solution. ஸோ நீங்க வந்து ரேண்டமா இது வந்து எல்லா இடத்துக்கும் நம்ம அப்ளிகபிள் ஆகுமா அப்படின்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. சில இடத்துல ரோடு ஹைட் ஆகிறது கூட, இப்போ ஹைவேஸ்ல ஒரு இடத்துல கொஞ்சம் ஹைட்டா போடுறது யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா, அது மேலேயே போடுறது யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கா, பிகாஸ் வாட்டர் வந்து 2 சைடும் ட்ரெயின் ஆகும் சில இடத்துல சொல்லுவாங்க. ஸோ டிபெண்ட்ஸ் ஆன் த ஏரியா. பட் பர்டிகுலர்லி மெனி சிட்டி ரோட்ஸ், டவுன் ரோட்ஸ்ல எல்லாம் நீங்க எங்க வீடுகள் இருக்கோ அந்த இடத்துல ஹைட்டை ஏத்தாம பார்த்துக்கிறது ரொம்ப ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டன்டான ஒரு விஷயமா இருக்கும். ஸோ அதை வந்து நம்ம we have to wherever it is necessary we have to ask for it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. Usha Venkatesan. Wilson, can you unmute Usha Venkatesan, please? Usha, can you hear us? Yeah.
Hello, good evening எல்லாருக்கும். நான் as a volunteer ஒரு last 3 or 4 years I am volunteering with Arappor.
Okay.
I am 62 years now. நீங்க எல்லாரும் எல்லாம் ஒரு 62 years now.
Okay.
நான் வந்து ரிட்டையர்ட் பப்ளிக் ஹெல்த் டிபார்ட்மெண்டோட அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேட்டிவ் ஆஃபீஸர். நான் வந்து இவ்வளவு கிட்டத்தட்ட ஒரு 34 years நான் ஒர்க் பண்ணியும் எனக்கு கிடைக்காத நிறைய இன்ஃபர்மேஷன்ஸ் எனக்கு அரப்போர் வந்து தான் கிடைச்சது. நிறைய வந்து கவர்மெண்ட் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்ஸ்ல வந்து என்னெல்லாம் பண்ண முடியுங்கிற டீடைல்ஸ் எனக்கு அங்க வந்துதான் நான் நிறையவே கத்துக்கிட்டேன் ஒண்ணு. அதனால எனக்கு வந்து பப்ளிக் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்லயும் மற்றதுலயும் என்னால வாலண்டியரிங் பண்றது எனக்கு ரொம்பவே ஈஸியாவும் இருந்தது. ஏன்னா ஒரு ஆஸ் அ ஆனஸ்ட் ஆஃபீஸரா ஒரு ஆனஸ்ட் ஆஃபீஸர் என்னெல்லாம் ஒரு ஸ்ட்ரகிள் ஃபேஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்லங்கிறது வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் தெரியும். ஏன்னா அதை நான் பர்சனலி ஃபீல் பண்ணியிருக்கேன், அதை நான் வந்து ஷேரும் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். அனதர் திங் வந்து இதுல வந்து நான் ஒண்ணு சொல்லணும். இங்க வந்து எப்படின்னாக்கா அரப்போர் வந்து ஒரு இன்ஸ்டிடியூஷன்ங்கிறதுக்காக அவங்க ஸ்ட்ரிக்டா ரொம்ப அப்படியே கண்டிஷனலா இருக்கவே மாட்டாங்க. ஃப்ரீயா யார் வேணாலும் என்ன வேணாலும் கேட்கலாம், பேசலாம், ஜாலியா இருக்கலாம். அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ஸ்மூத்னஸ்லயே எங்களுக்கு வந்து இன்ஃபர்மேஷன்ஸ் எல்லாம் கலெக்ட் பண்றதுக்கு சரி, வாலண்டியரா ஒர்க் பண்றதுக்கு சரி, எல்லாமே நாங்க அந்த ஒரு ஒர்க் பண்றோங்கிறதே தெரியாம ஜாலியா பண்ணுவோம். எல்லாருக்கும் இண்டிபெண்டன்ட் ரெஸ்பெக்ட் உண்டாங்க. யாரானாலும் பேரை சொல்லி கூப்பிடலாம். அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு சார் அப்படி மேடம் அந்த மாதிரியான ஃபார்மாலிட்டிஸ் எல்லாம் கிடையவே கிடையாது. அங்க வந்து ஒர்க் பண்றது வந்து ரொம்ப நிஜமா இட்ஸ் ரியலி பிளெஸிங். ஏதோ ஒரு சொசைட்டிக்கு, ஒரு நேஷனுக்கு நம்மளால ஒரு இது செய்ய முடிஞ்சதுல ஒரு பெரிய சாட்டிஸ்பாக்சன் அரப்போர் கொடுக்குது. அந்த விஷயத்துல அரப்போருக்கு தேங்க்ஸ். Till my death I will work with Arappor ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Usha. Thank you very much.
Again, இவங்கள மாதிரி பர்சன் ஆர் இன்ஸ்பிரேஷன். நீங்க அந்த இன்ஸ்பிரேஷன் கேட்கும்போது ஆஃப்டர் ரிட்டையர்மெண்ட் ஷீ கம்ஸ் டு அரப்போர். உஷா மேடம் அவங்க வந்து அவங்களுக்கு எங்க வேணா ஒர்க் இருக்கும், அங்க டிராவல்ல கூட இருப்பாங்க. ஆனா ஒரு ஈவெண்ட் வந்ததுன்னா அதுக்காக கால் பண்ணியாச்சும் போறேன், நான் வழியிலேயே கூட பேசிட்டு போயிடுறேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு போன் பண்ணி பேசுவாங்க அந்த ஈவெண்ட்டுக்காக. ஸோ ஐ மீன் இட் இஸ் திஸ் வாலண்டியரிங் மென்டாலிட்டி தட் வி ஷுட் டூ சம்திங் டு த சொசைட்டி. ரிட்டையர் ஆனதுக்கு அப்புறம் பென்ஷன் வாங்கிட்டு இல்லாம இல்ல நான் ஏதாவது பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு வராங்க. இந்த மாதிரி there are hundreds of them. அந்த மாதிரி வரவங்க are inspiration as well. And Arappor is built of many such volunteers. It is, I mean, today you are seeing my face. I'm only நான் சும்மா அப்படி பயம் உள்ள இருந்தாலும் தைரியமா வெளியில இருக்கிற மாதிரி காமிச்சிட்டு வெளியே வந்து உட்கார்ந்து இருக்கிற பர்சன். பட் அந்த மாதிரி தைரியமா நிறைய பேர் இருக்காங்க அப்படிங்கிறது சொல்லுங்க.
Okay, right. Now you're
that's what Arappor is from.
Okay, now you're really in trouble because T.K. Ramkumar is asking. T.K. Ramkumar is asking, what are your views on water rights? He's intent on getting you into trouble, so you might as well answer him.
He is much more knowledgeable. There is no doubt about it, Ramkumar sir. But water rights, definitely it's a basic fundamental right. Today we are in a situation where water is a commercial entity, illa basic fundamental right. See, this is where we are right now as a country. And water is a resource that is fast dwindling, that we are seeing. Farmers, everyone is getting into a lot of trouble. People in the towns, people in the cities, drinking water struggles. We are seeing all this. It's all because we have not focused on water as a basic right. It's not as a fundamental right for citizens. So we should look at water as a basic right for citizens and work from that aspect. And we have already started taking some of the measures. Arappor is also part of a larger measure that Mr. T.K. Ramkumar and many others have initiated. Suresh and others have initiated with respect to making water, in the issue of water across different districts. So we started with it. In fact, we wanted to have a bigger conclave in Chennai where we get water rights movements from across Tamil Nadu, get to work together, because there are several issues of encroachments fight பண்ணும்போது threats இருக்கு அவங்களுக்கு. இன்னொரு பக்கம் வந்து டேட்டாவோட இந்த வாட்டர் பாடி ரெஸ்டோரேஷன் ஒர்க் பண்றது எக்ஸ்ட்ரீம்லி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட். ஸோ இது எல்லாத்துக்கும் there is a network that is required throughout Tamil Nadu is what we feel, and that is something Mr. T.K. Ramkumar, Dr. Suresh எல்லாரும் சேர்ந்து இனிஷியேட் பண்ணது. We are also part of it. Unfortunately, with this COVID situation, we have not been able to make progress in these 6-7 months. But hopefully, after the situation gets better, we should again get together and make this as a bigger issue and fight for it over a long term to make sure in the water issues are addressed as much as possible.
I'm sure your TKR will directly respond to you. You want to say something, unmute yourself and say whatever you want. No, you're not. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
No, I don't really want to add anything. I just wanted Jayaram to talk about water rights movement, and he has done it. That's more than enough. Anyone wants to, yeah.
Okay, done. And now that since you're here, the last query or chat on today's session is the one from Mr. Jafar Sadiq, which is 50% serious, 50% in jest, will Arappor enter electoral politics? Jayaram, what is
I
your...
don't think so.
Huh?
I don't think so. I don't think we should enter, and I think that is the larger consensus in Arappor as well. That there is a lot of work that needs to be done on the people's politics side. Unless we make this a vibrant civil society where people, citizens, realize their fundamental duties as a citizen, they come forward to ensure fundamental rights for citizens. Unless these things happen in large numbers, things are not much going to change much in electoral politics. We need to do electoral reforms, police reforms. We need to do a lot of reforms in order to even build a level playing field. That will make honest people have a chance to succeed in elections. So our focus fundamentally, we have decided that it will be in people's politics, not in politics.
Okay. So thank you very much, Jayaram. From the time we started this interactive session at the end, it's almost more than half an hour. Thank you very much for your patience. Thanks very much to your family for their patience. We'll keep in touch, and thank you very much for that delightfully frank session. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it.
Bye. Bye. Take care.